Hello, Blackman High School students. This is Mr. Seadorf, one of your librarians here, and we have a very special conversation with program here for you today. Mr. Christopher J. Cassidy. I'm going to read you a little bit about our guest today. This is really exciting, and I'll tell you about him. Christopher J. Cassidy was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 2004 and is a veteran of 2 space flights, one of which made him the 500th person in history to fly into space. He is a U.S. Navy SEAL, deployed twice to the Mediterranean and twice to Afghanistan, as well as been the recipient of a Bronze Star. Cassidy recently served as commander of the International Space Station for Expedition 63. He is married with 5 children, and he enjoys such outlets as biking, snow skiing, and home improvement projects, which we will discuss. He is the pride of the York High School Wildcats there in Maine. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Great to be with you today, Brian. Thanks for the introduction.
Absolutely. So I want to start with you as a high schooler. You grew up in Salem, Massachusetts, went to York High School in York, Maine. I'd like for you to compare high school Christopher Cassidy with current Christopher Cassidy. And what advice would you give 18-year-old Christopher now?
Well, that's a great question. In some ways, it feels like exactly the same person, just with more gray hairs and a few more experiences. But in other ways, those experiences have shaped me to be different than I was. I was just a very typical student in all grades, particularly high school. I was a decent basketball player and football player, so all of my spare time was focused really in sports, but I enjoyed the classroom a lot, and I enjoyed my friends from all aspects of school, whether it be the folks I kind of went to the classes with, the folks I played sports with, or just my friends from like Cub Scouts and stuff like that that I had throughout the years. We were a small town. There was about 500 people in my high school, so everybody knew each other. What advice would I give that Chris Cassidy? I would say that keep the same enthusiasm for learning, not so much academic, that too, but also about the world and curiosity about how things work, curiosity about how human interactions, people working with people. That's one part I didn't understand when I was young, that really the world goes around by people interaction with other humans, and doing that effectively carries you a long ways. But in some ways, I would just tell myself back then, just keep doing what you're doing, because it's gonna work out just fine the track that you're on.
What are your memories of graduation day?
I remember more of my junior year, when my friends that were seniors were graduating, because I was excited for them, and also thinking, wow, I am now a senior. Once they leave, I'm a senior. It's, as you asked me that, it's difficult to even picture my own graduation day. At the time, I didn't know it would be the last day I saw some people. You think, it's not possible. I'm going to always know my friends from Murfreesboro, and you probably will. And your mom will tell you, hey, I heard so-and-so got married, some time in the future. But for me, in a very small town, the last time I saw some folks was on graduation day.
Very sobering, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, just life happens quick.
Well, let's moving on to some of your education. You have a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from the U.S. Naval Academy and a Master of Science in Ocean Engineering from MIT. That's very impressive. How have those 2 degrees influenced your day job as an astronaut?
I chose mathematics for an undergrad because I always liked math, and it always came natural to me, and I felt like that was a smart choice to take as a major in undergrad, knowing that the Naval Academy is difficult by itself, and I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. I thought, okay, this is a good fit for me, and it was. But really what helped me as an astronaut is my graduate studies in engineering. The specific focus was ocean engineering, but the concept of engineering, the engineering principles are the same really, no matter what discipline you study, whether electrical, mechanical, ocean, aero, you're dealing with forces and how they interact with each other and where you apply those forces and how things react under load and all things like this. Momentum, physics, engineering kind of all coupled together really helped me understand complex systems when I started to learn them as an astronaut. Thrust and thermodynamics and the load that a vehicle takes when you push this giant amount of thrust into it. And there's smart engineers that are doing all of those calculations. Unfortunately, as an astronaut, I don't have to be the one that derives those answers, but we sit in the very same rooms in the same meetings as those engineers and technicians that are making sure that the systems are safe. And it's very helpful to understand, to speak the same language and understand what they're talking about. So in broad strokes, engineering is what I'm most thankful that I studied in one of those two, either undergraduate or graduate degree.
I would imagine there's so much about deep exploration of the ocean that there's so much we still don't know, even, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my focus was more on engineering things that will go in the water. And I drove mini submarines in the SEAL teams, and I concentrated on mini submarines. But once I got into the program, like, oh yeah, somebody has to design those giant bridge pylons that go deep into the river with current acting on it and cars and trains going over the bridge. I really like the aspect of all of that stuff. I found it fascinating. I still do, actually.
You spent 11 years as a Navy SEAL. You had multiple deployments to Afghanistan, the Mediterranean. But reading your bio, there's something that kind of stood out for me. You are a commander for multiple occasions, as well as a commander when you're on the space station as well, on the space mission. That means you had to be a leader. And you saw some other leaders, but you really had to be a leader multiple times. What did you learn about being a leader during those times?
I didn't just graduate from high school on that day and stumble into various leadership positions. It's something that I didn't realize it was happening as it was happening in the first decade of my career. You're doing jobs that enable you to take on the next greater challenge. And when I was a brand new naval officer and learning the ropes of how the SEAL community worked and watching other leaders lead and being a follower myself, I was developing skills that were all in my backpack, so to speak, to enable me to be successful. And same thing on the space station. I had been a leader in the SEAL teams when I became selected as an astronaut, but now as a brand new astronaut, and certainly not ready to be the commander of a space shuttle mission. But then as years went by, I accrued more experience and knowledge in the space community and was ready to be the commander of the space station. But in all of those things, what I learned is that it's the team of people that make up that team. It's not just the leader, it's not just the followers, it's how you interact. And when you are put in charge, realizing that every person on that team or unit has value to add and can contribute. For a soccer player on Murfreesboro High School, you don't know if it's the sophomore that's just in their first game in the playoffs because the senior person got hurt and now that person is stepping up. And so you just never know who's going to be the contributor that day. It's really about pulling together strengths from every member of the unit that makes a leader effective.
Who was a mentor of yours?
I've had a couple along the way, each phase of life. In high school, I had a really fantastic principal that was a mentor for all of us, but I looked up to him tremendously. My football coach is one person that I still keep in touch today. So that was kind of that phase of life. In my early Navy days, a couple great leaders that I tried to emulate their style. But most recently, a really awesome astronaut that I looked up to when I became one, and his name was Joe Tanner. And he was probably my early mentor as an astronaut. I liked his style, I liked his personality, I liked the respect that he had within the technical community of astronauts. And to this day, there's two people that I call the night before any spacewalk, and he's one of them.
Wow. That's the true effect that a good mentor can have on you.
Yeah.
From April 9th until October 21st last year, you served as commander and you completed 4 spacewalks, totaling almost 24 hours. The thing that I really thought about with this, though, is that you were in space while whatever you want to call 2020 was going on and the COVID-19 shutdown. Now, what is it like normally being away from your friends and family while you're in space? And what was it like to see the world basically shutting down through a good portion of the year and you're not there?
Just to answer that question at a very high level quickly, and I'll go into more depth. In a normal 6-month mission on the space station, you feel like everybody on Earth has tons more freedom than you do. You're envious of their day-to-day actions, the ability to go to Target or wherever you go. But in 2020, I realized that we, the 3 of us and sometimes 5 of us on the space station, then the whole entire population on Earth, everybody else was in lockdown, and people were envious. They didn't know it, but they're probably envious of our freedoms. We could go around, we could close contact. We didn't need to wear masks all day long because it was just us in an isolated bubble, and we knew that there was no virus there. That was something that dawned on me, like, wow, we are living in the lap of luxury up here compared to what the folks down on Earth has. There's certain aspects of being away from Earth for 6 months that are hard no matter when you do it. You're away from your family. You don't have the smells that exist on Earth that you're so used to. Like, you walk outside and you smell fresh air, stuff cooking in the kitchen, or Murfreesboro, I know, is not next to the ocean, but you can picture like ocean spray or mist kind of thing. So there's Earth smells that we don't have on the space station, and your friends and family are not there. But we do have the ability to look out a window and see Earth go by. So it's not, we don't need anybody to feel sorry for us. It's pretty awesome to be up there, no matter how long you are.
Can you get a cold?
Long before COVID, we have always quarantined our astronauts before launching to go to space. For that reason, we want to keep it a healthy environment up there. One time during a space shuttle mission, so space shuttle had 7 people, and it would come visit the space station for 2 weeks and then leave. One time, a space shuttle crew did pick up some kind of cold right before launch, and they brought it to the space station. It only lasted a couple weeks, and it was gone. With or without COVID, we definitely quarantined before we launch.
Did it ever happen to you where I've seen it before, where the day of they had to call off a launch and you had to wait? Did that ever happen to you?
Never happened to me. Not for health reasons. Definitely for weather reasons. That happens a lot in Florida. You wake up and you think it's launch day, and then you need a certain weather criteria. And particularly in the summertime in Florida, there's thunderclouds all the time. They roll through. They're there for 2 hours, and then it's sunny for the rest of the day. And sometimes you just get unlucky with the weather. But I've never experienced it for health reasons.
Well, you face I would imagine, some pretty intense moments in your life, from your military experience to your time in space. So I've got two things I'd like for you to give an example of. What is an example where you handled a stressful situation well? And when is a time when you didn't handle a difficult situation well, but you learned from it?
A stressful situation well, there was one time when I was doing a spacewalk with Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano, and his spacesuit started to leak water inside. So we have a cooling system in the backpack, and we didn't know it at the time or why, but the valves weren't operating correctly because of some cruddy water basically got stuck in the valves. And water is only supposed to go one direction. It was flowing and backing up into his oxygen lines. And as his oxygen was coming into his helmet, it was mixed with water. That process started about 45 minutes into a spacewalk, and it took us 45 minutes to get back into the airlock and safely get his helmet off. But in that 45 minutes, I think that we handled it well, like the two of us and the ground team, in getting Luca out of a stressful situation into the airlock where we could get his helmet off. You can't take your helmet off in the vacuum of space. You need the pressurization of your spacesuit. So that part took a long time. And I think we executed kind of emergency steps well. Ironically enough, it's that same event where I would have done something different. And we go outside on a spacewalk to be a pair, to help each other if you need. Luca and I had gone different paths to get to the same point, and we had safety lines going back. The ground team had told us to go back on our own safety lines, which means I had to go one direction and he had to go another direction, and we had to meet up about a basketball court distance length away. I had to go up one sideline and he had to go up the other sideline, for an example, on the basketball court with that same dimensions. And what I would do different today if we were in the same exact situation is I would stop and tell the Mission Control Center, no, I need to be with him on the same sideline. So whatever we have to accept the risk of my safety line being out and maybe in the way of some other things, I need to go back with him. So the same event, it sounds crazy, but the same event I think we handled well. And me as a person, as I play it back in my head, that's one change I would make, is we would go back together.
You can always learn something, I would think.
Always can learn something. And then we do at NASA, we debrief every event, whether it's a spacewalk or a launch or a docking or robotics, together. Sometimes it's formal with a bunch of people, and sometimes it's just the two astronauts, sitting with a cup of tea, talking about, okay, I did this and I wish I'd done that, and how can I help you better? And we do that every single time.
Well, I've got a couple of quick, fun questions for you. What's the best part of York, Maine, your hometown?
Well, the town is right on the coast of Maine, on the water, and there's a really cool lighthouse that's a historic lighthouse called the Nubble Lighthouse, and right adjacent to that is an outdoor basketball court, and that was my favorite part. I spent all day long in the summertime playing basketball with the lighthouse there, my friends around me. Just a great place to grow up.
What are you, a guard? Are you a forward?
I was like a forward.
Yeah, nice. But it's hard all those memories of playing with your friends. I know those are pretty special.
Pretty fun times.
Yes. What's your favorite home improvement task?
Oh, good. Anything electrical. I like the challenge of solving electrical troubleshooting, and then also putting in new lighting. And lately I've been getting into smart devices and having things be controlled by events. So we don't have to unlock our door, and we don't have to lock it. It just does it automatically. So I like electrical and smart home kind of things.
Is that also your wife's favorite home improvement task for you to do, or does she have a different one for you?
She likes it when I fix the smart things that aren't so smart.
Good answer. What's your dream biking area? I know you're an avid biker. Where is a place you've never been and you think, oh, I've got to go?
My wife and I did a week-long bike across Missouri on an old railroad. There's a thing across the country called Rails to Trails, where they turn old railroad tracks into bike paths. There's one that I'd like to do that goes from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., and I think that would be super, super cool. Or the West Coast along California would be neat. But the one that pops right into my mind, because I was looking at the website about 3 days ago, is this path that goes Pittsburgh to DC.
Oh, that sounds great. You've finished an Ironman race before. How many Ironman races have you done?
Well, the full distance Ironman, just one. I've done many of shorter distances, but the full one was just the one time. So
when you finish the one, what are your first thoughts after you've crossed that finish line? What are you actually thinking of?
My first thought was, well, that wasn't so bad. But because the training and preparation for an Ironman is just very intense. It's long. Like you generally about 6 months before you do it, and it kind of consumes your life for those months. So I remember thinking right as I crossed, like, wow, race day was easy compared to the actual build up to this crazy event.
That almost sounds like a life lesson. Could be.
Yeah, I think it is, and that's probably true with a lot of things. The preparation is monumental. When you're prepared, that shows that you're prepared, right? When the actual thing feels like a piece of cake.
That's it. Well, I'm a librarian, so I have to ask, what are you currently reading?
I just read a book called Devotion, which two Navy pilots in the Korean War. One pilot landed to rescue his friend, who happened to be the first African-American Navy jet pilot. And this was in 1950 or 51. Really super cool book if you like military history, which I do. And it's true. And it's also about two buddies there to help each other when one's in need of it. And just was a great book. I liked it.
Nice. When you think of high school music, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
High school music?
Yeah, music.
80s. Yeah. All, the best of the 80s soundtracks. Yeah.
Nice. When you think of movies you saw in high school, what movie pops in your head?
16 Candles was popular. And Back to the Future.
Good choices. My final question is, what's next? What's next for you?
I love working at NASA. I love being in the Navy, but those things eventually end. So I'm actively thinking about that very question right now. What do I want to do next? Whenever I do retire from the Navy and from NASA, there'll be some just relaxing and enjoying time and not having a busy schedule. Maybe do a little public speaking and while I figure out what the answer to that question is.
If you can you give a little shout out to our CDC class that's watching today?
Oh, the CDC class. Hello. Hi, everybody. And it's great to be with folks here in Murfreesboro.
Mr. Cassidy, thank you so much for your time. This has been a really eye-opening interview. I think you've had good thoughts, and what a journey you've had. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
No, everybody has great journeys, and I'm just excited for the folks, particularly the seniors that are starting off on their journey. So it'll be fun for you to interview some folks in 10 years from now who they can tell you what they've done in the last 10 years.
That's exactly right. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a great interview, and I hope you have a great day.